starting a little late today. Thank you so much for your patience. We will have a very brief and quick
online in to win in the world, and in terms of us being able to generate the economic impact that our country so dearly, requires in order for us to be able to restore the dignity of a better life for all South Africans. So it is in that context that, I stand in front of you to address the issue that has become very topical over the last 24 to 36 hours in terms of one of the envisaged marketing initiatives that we had contemplated as an entity, both at board level and also at executive level. I want to preface the detail of everything that we are going to be discussing with really first starting at looking at what the marketing mandate of South African tourism is. According to the Tourism Act, number 3 of 2014, the mandate of South African tourism is to market South Africa as a tourist destination, both domestically and internationally. From a domestic standpoint, it is about getting South Africans to, tour within the country so that, we can both support tourism product within the country and also keep the money rotating within our economy. The second part of our mandate is to get people outside of our economy, because the way in which, in terms of media investment in international marketing, if you take 2016 to 2018, we spent 1,081,000, okay? Is not about that. Aggregated audiences that football brings. That's who we are after. We are after the viewers of football, the followers Sky. We are accessing, it's about the aggregated audiences. So sports and entertainment is this. I will ask my colleague in a moment to come in. The opportunities to see where the OTT on the platform gives you the kind of yield that you require. So that is what we looked at in terms of accessing this particular platform. Global reach, sustained throughout the year. 3, it must have been, can be converted, you can sell a sales package directly to them. And that is what we did. These audiences, we are going to be able to market directly into the databases so that we're able to, in terms of, we marketed into this base, we spent X, how many people actually convert? When you place it generically on a TV, the second driver is around the personality of our destination. And there, on personality, over an awareness issue. Either you're going to throw, obviously it's an internal document, I cannot make it available to you, but this is what I can make sure that all stakeholders are aligned. But before we could do that, this issue was already in the public domain. So, about it is very important to school. Get past to suggest that tourism must reach across into the domain of the Sports, Arts and Culture Department. And we're not going to do that. We are in platforms where we've got aggregated audiences, and that is what we're going to do. And I just thought that we should set the record straight. I'm open for questions. I'm also open for one-on-ones. I'm here the whole day. All right? If you want to meet even very seriously, we'll go through the conversations. If you want me to come to your studio, the team is here. They'll book my time. I'll come to your studio. We'll have the discussion. I've cleared this whole week. We're going to deal with this issue. We're going to bring it back onto the conversation about economic recovery. A great nation. We believe that tourism is one of the biggest economic drivers and will bring people in villages, towns, and small utopias into the fold. Tourism will continue to be a powerhouse of driving economic recovery. Let's get past this and let's get back to business. With that said, please allow me to invite my colleague, Robert Manson, the Acting Chief Strategy Officer, just to go through a little bit more detail on the numbers, and then I'll come back, we'll wrap up, and then we'll do a Q&A, and we'll then do one-on-ones. Thank you very much. Robert, you ready? Thank you, brother. Cool.
They spend when they come into the country. So really, I will stop there from a numbers point of view, and we'll take some questions later. I'll invite the acting CEO back on stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert, for those numbers. I've received, some messaging that say, TK, can you just tone down a little bit, There's too much intensity in the room. To the extent that my intensity might have caused you a little discomfort, please forgive me. I believe in the work that we do. I tend to go into overdrive in that respect. So to the extent that I might have come across a little bit too robust, please forgive me for that. The content of what I've said still stands. Yeah. I'd like to just conclude by saying, I really appreciate we have our chairperson of the board here, Dr. Mhlongo, who is here to my right. We're joined online by the rest of the board. They are listening in. We do have all of our executive present here today, who might want you might need to ask them some specific questions that might not have been covered in this discussion. So we are all here available to answer your questions. And let me also say, thank you to the media for this moment, for us being able to have this discussion, for showing an interest in the tourism sector, and for showing up in such great numbers, both directly here and online. Thank you very much for that. At least we're having a conversation about the sector. We might differ in terms of the tactics. We might differ in terms of certain strategic focus areas, but I believe that we all want the same thing. And for you holding us honest as well, that if indeed, things were being done that were harmful, to South Africans and to the economy, we should be held accountable for that. So to the extent that you've been able to engage with us on this, I deeply appreciate it, and thank you, for really showing up and for engaging in this regard. I'll now turn over to my colleague, Thandiwe Matibela. Q&A?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, CEO. I think how we will work it is that we will toggle between questions that we've got online as well as questions from this room. We will begin with a set of 3 questions from this room. We'll take one after the other, and then we'll allow the CEO as well as Mr. Manson to respond. We will then go to the online questions. So to everyone that is joining us online, please note that we will definitely address your questions that we've got. We do have people that are monitoring that. So let us begin with the first 3 questions here in the room. And we will try as much as possible to take as many questions as possible. So 3 questions, we do have roving mics.
Thank you very much. I'm going to be cheeky and ask 3 questions, if I can. One is... Oh, yes, I can. I'm Adele McKenzie from Tourism Update. I'm the editor of Tourism Update. It's a publication aimed at international travel trade and local travel trade. So the 3 questions are, do you have an expectation of you were speaking about the ROI and the global reach, mentioning that this particular contract, if I understood correctly, this particular contract proposal could reach 24 markets, and what is the global reach there? The other question is really from representing the tourism industry, the supply chain, the product supply side, we know that they're also facing a lot of, absolutely applaud the need to bring in other players, youth, women. I mean, as a woman, I completely agree. But there are existing suppliers that have really struggled. They're struggling with electricity supply issues. They're struggling with, post-COVID, and as you mentioned, the other challenges. Is there some money to assist them? Because I know that there's a need for that. And then second of all, what is the current budget, marketing budget, the 2023-24 marketing budget for SA Tourism? Thank you.
Thank you, Adele. May I just request that we limit our questions to one so that we can all allow everybody else to ask the questions, so that we allow everyone to get a chance to. Please go ahead, ma'am, from Bloomberg.
Hi, Temba, it's Loni from Bloomberg. So earlier you referred to 1 billion being spent and then a return on investment of 88 billion. And my question is, were you referring to the Tottenham deal? And if not, can you give us a bit more detail on the sort of planned spend on that contract and what the possible returns are? Because I'm sure you guys have made some numbers on the deal. So just some details on the deal would be great. Also, where are you in terms of talks now? Did this sort of derail talks, or where are you?
Okay. We'll take one last question on the floor. We'll definitely do a comeback. As stated, we'll take one last question on the floor, allow the CEO to answer, take 3 questions from online, and then come back on the floor. Thank you.
Sure, I'm Dozo Kumalo from Newsroom Africa. I think just bringing it closer to home, where we've seen a similar deal being Rwanda, the issue there is being that it took quite a while to see even that 25% of return in tourism, but it took even longer to see that trickle-down effect on the actual people working within the sector. Could we unpack a little bit more on that? I know he did mention, the employment and all of that, but is there a more concrete plan for the people working within the industry on how long we'll see that trickle-down effect?
Thank you. CEO? Are you good? Okay, we're going to take more. So please, can we have questions from 2 more people on the floor before we go online? Hi.
Thank you. It's Khomotso from Eyewitness News. I know that you've limited us to 1 question, so I think my main one is around this malicious act that you're speaking about. Are you investigating this at all? What do you think the motive behind leaking this report may have been? And what will the repercussions be for the individual that has decided to leak this document? Thanks. I hope you'll be back for more questions.
Mark Stradom, Times Live. Just a question on the figures that were given in the Daily Maverick report, which we assume to be accurate, that over 3 years it's worth £42.5 million. And the reported amount of the Rwanda deal with Arsenal is worth £10 million a year. So I know you say it's not about football, but those of us who know football know that Arsenal are a much bigger team than Tottenham. So I'm sure any Premier League team gets exposure globally, but why can you explain the disparity in those figures? Why South Africa would pay more for Tottenham?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Velile? There at the back, please. May I please encourage everyone that is asking questions from the floor to please speak up so that our audience that are joining us online can also follow. Thank you.
Yes, Velile from SABC Sport. I would like to, I know that I spoke to the acting CEO around it yesterday, and he did say that he knows nothing about it, and that is the proposal, similar proposal by Chelsea, whom I believe they are bigger and better than Tottenham. in everything considered around something like this. But I would like to know, because he says in terms of consultation has not been done with other stakeholders in terms of the departments. So during this period, is this something that's going to be considered? Because from the information that at SABC we've got is that quite a number of people at this level are aware of this Chelsea proposal.
Thank you so much. CEO, may I please invite you to address this lot of questions before we take the next lot? May I just advise everyone that we will get to their questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the questions. They're quite challenging, and I appreciate them. So I'm going to start with the questions from Tourism Update. The reach of this particular deal should, it proceed. It will reach 661 million people. All right? And those are people that watch the game live. Now, I was on a flight, and I actually wasn't looking at this particular dynamic until this person said this to me. This person was flying, in business class, and they said to me they can't afford to watch every single Premiership game live because it is so expensive. And that then gave me the idea that it means that the people that watch the game live are of a certain LSM. They're of a certain income bracket. So we actually went and we dug into the numbers, and we found that the audience that actually follows the Premiership globally is affluent, can afford to travel, and there's a high propensity to travel within that base. So if you've got 616 million as a base, and you converted 10%, that is 61.6 million. If you only converted 1%, that is still 6 million arrivals. So just 1% conversion of the entire base would give you an additional 6 million arrivals, which are not currently in our consideration set. So that's how we get that inflection point in terms of the growth. So there's the number. 1% gives you an additional 6 million travel. And that is why we know that this deal, and then if you take that 6 million times the average spend that Robert was talking about, that gives you billions in terms of return into the economy. So that is, on the ROI. In terms of value chain, one of the things that we looked at in terms of the different composition of the teams is, and I don't want to go into the detail, by the way, because we're under confidentiality, but let me just give you this particular dimension. They're over 35 members of the House of Lords, House of Commons, inside of that base. Now, if you remember when we had the whole Omicron virus lockdown at the end of last year, and we couldn't get people out of Europe and out of, the biggest transit point, which is, the United Emirates. Being able to access decision makers in those markets for advocacy reasons is absolutely critical. So part of what this partnership does is it gives us access to policymakers in a way that we would not normally be able, to access that base. Also, there are CEOs of London-listed, companies as part of their base. So in terms of MICE travel, meetings, incentives, conventions, and exhibitions, we are able to then go and pitch to those big UK corporates in order to drive business, travel into the country. So when you start unpacking the deal, you'll start seeing that there's a lot of other underlying benefits in terms of how we'll be able to actually drive, the return on investment for this deal, and how we drive advocacy back channeling in order for us to get this done. And that's why I said part of the trip that we made was to engage with our own High Commissioner in the UK in terms of should this deal go ahead, how would our High Commissioner be able to leverage some of the access that this deal would make from an advocacy standpoint? So all of that, we have considered. We've also looked at the issue around direct airlift. So in order for you to recover from any destination around the world, you need direct airlift. And one of the things that has happened is we've lost a lot of direct airlift, from our key source markets. Some, source markets, we haven't lost the direct airlift, but we've lost the frequencies. And inside the frequencies, we've lost the size of aircraft. So they're flying smaller aircraft less frequently. So part of driving that demand is so that we actually get more frequencies and we get bigger metal on each of those frequencies so that we're able to drive our tourism recovery. So that's on the value chain issue. And then in terms of assisting the product owners on the supply side, that supply side mandate does not sit with South African Tourism. It actually sits with our department. All right, so that question should be directed to the Director General. The highly, competent DDGs that are dedicated, and run programs in this respect, and I'm sure they'll be able to, to provide you with a response in terms of the supply side. Let me come to the questions from Bloomberg. As I said, we are under confidentiality, so I can't go too deep into, some of the detail there. I can neither confirm nor deny that the numbers that are in the public domain are true. I can neither confirm nor deny. There are documents that are flying around. This is the age of, social media. People can edit PDFs and can do all kinds of things. So I don't know what version of the document is out there. And I will confine myself to documents that are released procedurally, and to information that is properly vetted and released through the normal channels. What I can say in terms of the deal, because that was a follow-up question, where are we sitting with the deal? Before we were rudely interrupted, we were in conversation. We have had to halt that conversation so that we can have this conversation and get all of our stakeholders back on sides. And should we succeed in that respect, then, the conversation will then proceed. One of the things that we do not do, and let me say this clearly, we are part of a broader tourism family, and we cannot simply proceed regardless of what our stakeholders are saying. We've got to be sensitive to what our partners are saying, and we've got to slow down. We've got to, engage and make sure that everybody is on board and that we can move together holistically. So that is kind of where the deal is right now. And should we make progress in this respect, we, through, our global GM of PR Comms, the highly competent Tandiwe Matibela, we will communicate with you and we will set up another forum to update you. Questions on Newsroom Africa, they also, link into the Times Live question around Rwanda. We've looked at that case study. We've looked at others. We've looked at Malaysia. We've looked at all of those, different case studies. And let me first answer why this particular team. So if you look at all of the top performing teams in the British Premier League, all of the ones before Tottenham already have tourism partners. They already have, tourism partners. So even if we wanted to, we could not engage them because they already have partners. So this was the only team in the top performing tier that did not have a destination partner. So hence, so we went through the whole list, and that's how we, we ended up here. The Rwanda case study, and we will make that available to you. By the way, we've analyzed it, and we will make it available to you. Team, please, every promise that I make, please, don't make me a liar. All right, so we've analyzed that one. That deal was a straight media buy. It was buying access to the audience and nothing else. When you look at our deal, it has got a whole lot of other benefits, like I've just alluded, to the fact that we are able to do advocacy, through this deal. We're able to do other, more creative things. So it's not just a straight media buy. And that is why they paid that amount of money, and we're paying slightly more because we have to access, other, an extra bouquet of benefits, which is not inside the Rwanda deal. There was also inside the Rwanda deal, there was a lot of, I'm now talking about the trickle-down question. Inside the Rwanda transaction, as I said, because it was a direct media transaction, it didn't have the on-the-ground impact components. And we have been very, very insistent that in our deal, there will be activity on the ground inside South Africa. That's as far as I can go. So once the deal is concluded, we'll unpack it, there will be activity on the ground. It will impact directly inside our economy. So that is some of the differences between our deal and the Rwanda deal. So it will impact businesses here directly. And that is as far as I can go. In terms of the question around the...
Malicious leak.
Yeah, okay, I'll get to the malicious leak. In terms, yes, I did receive a phone call last night concerning a Chelsea deal. I raised both my hands. I've never seen the document. I've never seen it. I asked my colleagues, all right? I've seen a completely different team, but not the one that is being referred to. So have we received another team? Yeah, we did. But the one that's being referred to, nah, not seen it. Maybe it was seen by a colleague of mine, I don't know. But, formally being presented to us as an option, no, that we've not seen.
So the question was, in terms of the stakeholders, since you're still consulting,
Yes. Oh, the department has seen the document. Oh, okay. You see, so we wouldn't be able to speak on behalf of the department. I think that question should be directed to the DG. I think the department would be able to respond to that one. It was not, communicated, to me. I've never seen that proposal. But I do confirm to you that I have seen another proposal, just not this particular one. But I have seen another proposal. And that one we saw in the middle of COVID, and the board took a position then, not on the principle of whether we should access the audiences or not. It was an issue of timing, that because we were in the middle of COVID, that was probably not the right timing to look at this audience aggregator. So the conditions have changed now, and that's why we're looking at the Premiership as an aggregator of audiences. But I'm happy to sit with you and discuss the issue further. Thank you, sir. In terms of the ramifications, we have got internal processes that we will follow in terms of identifying how the leak occurred. Documents that are discussed inside of a board environment are confidential documents. And it is a breach of the board charter. It is a breach of conditions of employment to leak documents outside of due process. So the applicable, processes will be followed, and should, the actor of the leak, be identified, the relevant, remedies will be made available to the board to address it. And that is as far as I can go in that regard. So that is the questions so far. I don't know if there are any further questions. Did I answer your question satisfactorily? Thank you, sir. There's still questions in the room. Yes, sir.
It's going to be one. My name is Siyabonga Sithole from the Star. I just want to find out, in terms of way forward, because people are calling for the deal to be scrapped already, like COSATU, DA, and everyone else. They're saying this is a vanity project that shouldn't be undertaken. What is the message currently?
I think if the transaction is looked at from the lens of football, if it's looked at, from that lens, I can understand how we can arrive at that conclusion. But if we are looking at aggregated audiences, we're looking at return on investment in terms of accessing those audiences. We're looking at, inflection point in terms of our growth trajectory to achieve an 18% CAGR, and that inflection point times, the average spend per visitor, and how that is going to impact jobs, et cetera, I don't think we'll arrive at the same conclusion. So, as I said, we had a mandate to say, okay, now that the deal is provisionally approved, go and engage those stakeholders. So we will be on a roadshow to engage all stakeholders, and should they be persuaded otherwise, would then proceed with the transaction. I think it's simply a misunderstanding that needs to be cleared up through dialogue. And South Africa is a country built on dialogue. It's a country built on sufficient consensus around issues, and we will proceed along those lines of our democratic South Africa.
Thanks. Just another one from me. You spoke about how you have decided to aggregate or put together smaller projects, or the money that would have gone to smaller projects, in order to fund this. Can you talk us through what went into the decision-making of which projects specifically you thought were worth doing away with in order to fund this? And then we've been hearing numbers, 36% of your total spend being channeled into this. Is that the correct number? Can you just verify that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll start with the last question. And I think, when Robert was presenting the numbers and earlier on, I did allude to the fact that, we are going to consolidate these smaller projects. The average commitment from a media standpoint as a percentage of our total budget is in the region of 35 to 40% of our total spend. Others is used in other kinds of initiatives. So all that we were doing here is to say what we would have invested in small, disparate, low impact projects, we will aggregate into accessing where we can actually clearly measure the return on investment, and we're accessing a bigger audience. And as I said, at 1%, you already have, a growth of 6 million additional travelers. So those numbers, yes, are by and large a correct reflection of the state of investment. Okay.
Okay.
I think there's one more question here, and then we can go online.
Thanks, Tsepo from ENCA.
Yes, sir.
CEO, okay, you've explained actually on why the Tottenham Hotspur instead of other teams, but I'm just thinking also, did you consider maybe talking to the Springboks, looking at the global aggregation audiences, and looking at the fact that it's also a Rugby World Cup year? Was that part of your scope, large scope? Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. As I said, our strategy is around everything that we are exceptional about as a destination. We've got exceptional people, we've got exceptional places, we've got exceptional cultural ways that we'd like to export to the rest of the world. We also look at exceptional platforms around the world into which we can go and do exceptional things. When I went through the criteria of how we decide on a platform, we said that it should have international reach and it should be sustainable across the year. The challenge with World Cups is they happen for a finite period of time, and then after that, you don't have the annual impact. So yes, we will engage around the World Cup, but it is around advocacy and using soft power. Look, we're 3 times, world champions. We're going in there to defend. We are at the highest point in terms of our performance and exceptionalism as a country. So absolutely, we are going to engage in that platform, but not in the same kind of way. It will have a different kind of spin. We also have a Netball World Cup that's happening here in the country. So we're also looking at that. We've got mega events that are happening. In fact, where's Zinhle? our acting chief convention bureau officer informed me this morning, and you're welcome. I just need to get a hold of her so she can give you the details. We have put out a call yesterday, nationally, for people to submit proposals for events and platforms for us to support. So absolutely, we've got to build platforms here that people are going to come into the country in order to come and enjoy. So this is not an isolation of all of those. We're also, the call went out
Yesterday.
So the call, please come up, put your hands together for Zinhle. This is our acting chief convention bureau officer. All right, so can you just talk about the call that we put out?
Certainly. Good day, everyone. So we have what you call a bid support program. The program was put together to assist events organizers who wish to host meetings in South Africa. So what we have done and what we have reviewed over the years is that it has always been streamlined. So for the first time yesterday, we published a call out to every South African, to every events organizer who wishes to host their event in South Africa. So basically, it becomes a support program that will assist you through formulation of strategy, but also elevate some of costs which are related to building or to hosting your event in South Africa. So that's the whole point of us having this call out, but on a widespread so that it reaches everyone who wants to host an event in South Africa. Thank you.
So, as I said, we've got a mandate to convince foreign nationals to travel to the country. We do so by going onto their platforms, but we also need on the supply side to have events that are worthy of people being able to travel to South Africa for. And we have to support the event platform in order for us to be able to attract people into the country. So that we're also doing, and that is what Zinhle, was referring to. So absolutely, we will do that. Okay, so can we go online? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, CEO. Questions from Rebecca Davis. The first question is, Minister Sisulu's spokesperson has confirmed that the minister signed off on the delegation to travel to the UK to do due diligence. Can Mr. Khumalo please confirm when the minister was briefed on the proposal? Mr. Khumalo has just said that there are no agencies involved in the proposal. She makes reference to a PowerPoint presentation that states that WWP agency will be used. Please clarify. Is a delegation still traveling to London this week to take the deal forward? What is Mr. Khumalo's response to the opinions expressed by multiple tourism and marketing experts that this is not a good use of tourism market budget? And if CEO can also please clarify how the deal was actually evaluated and what the ROI thereof would be.
Okay, thank you very much. I will start with the last part of the question, which is, the ROI. I think we've spent this whole morning, having that conversation, so I take that question as answered. The second thing about a document that, is being referred to, I don't know how that document got into anybody's hands. I cannot speak to the authenticity of the document. I cannot speak to the content of a document that was obtained in that manner. All that I can refer to is documents that we release officially, where we can verify, the efficacy of the contents. So in terms of being able to refer to a document that I have not seen, I'm not going to do that. I don't think that it is appropriate to do so. What I believe is appropriate is if we need to have a conversation with that particular journalist, we can sit down and we can go through it and we can provide authentic documents and have a conversation. I'm here all day. I'm not avoiding the question. I'm saying let's sit down, put a document that we can verify and have a conversation over that document. And then, we can then come to an understanding. So that is where I'm going to leave that one. Otherwise, we'll be answering to all kinds of versions of documents that are out there, and I don't think that that is fair. So the invitation is being issued to that particular journalist to come sit down and we'll have a conversation around it. I'm open and available to do so. Thank you. Any other questions?
Just for other questions, I'm also interested in the two. The one about the travel,
Mhm.
whether or not you guys are still very good with regards to that.
Oh, I think I did answer that question when I was answering the question about what's the state of the deal. So the state of the deal is that the board made a decision to provisionally approve this particular project and said, in order for it to be complete, we need to go and engage with other stakeholders. So we've got to go and engage with the ministry, we've got to engage with the department, we've got to engage with Treasury, we've got to engage with the private sector, we've got to engage with the province, we've got to go and engage our stakeholder environment. So, no, there is no travel to the UK until such time that we have, gone and addressed the stakeholder environment and gotten alignment with all stakeholders. So that is the answer to that question.
During your research phase, has there been any engagement, and how in-depth was it, with your Rwandan counterparts on the success/impact of their deal with the Arsenal Football Club? Will there be any penalties if we do walk away from the transaction? If yes, how much is the cost? Our tourist experience is bad in South Africa. Surely the funds would be better used to improve infrastructure for tourist experience plus safety, and seeing that most hospitality places are not up to scratch and could be better assisted, including water and electricity stability.
Thank you very much for those questions. So I think I did answer the question on the supply side. The supply side, which is the infrastructure that supports the tourism sector, that is managed out of the Department of Tourism under the leadership of the DG and the relevant DDGs. So that question needs to be directed there. And I'm sure you'll obtain, the right responses in that regard. We are on the demand side, we are a DMO, a destination marketing organization. We don't do the management of the supply side, except in the context of the grading council, which is in terms of grading establishments and determining where they fit in terms of the various quality standards. So outside of that, really, I would not want to speculate what the response of the department would be. It is a good question, and I think it should be directed in that direction. So that is my response. Did I miss anything else from that question? Thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Any other further questions, or are we ready for one-on-ones? Thank you, sir.
CEO, yeah, just Mark Stranham, Times Live. Not to come back to Rwanda, but, I think that maybe was one you missed in the last question. But apart from speaking to Rwanda, I'm sure you've done your market research, and if I've missed something on this, there's been a lot of information. But do you have figures? I've seen 22% increase in Rwanda. I've seen 8%. We heard 25% earlier. You must have done market research on what the return has been for Rwanda, and can you divulge some of those? Because I think that would, strengthen your argument too. But also, bearing in mind it's a smaller team. I'm not an Arsenal fan, by the way.
All right, so let me answer this question in this way. We did look at the Rwanda case study among other case studies, okay? And if you look at the Rwanda supply side, the tourism platform, all right, in Rwanda, it's not even close to what we have in South Africa in terms of the number of beds, in terms of the number of tourism attractions, in terms of the overall offering that we have from a supply side. So they had an overall lift, okay? So you have your normal growth trajectory, and then the lift portion above the trajectory that they had was an 8% lift of the normal trajectory. So when you see 22%, it means they would have been growing at 17, and they had an addition. No, they'll be growing at 14, and then they would have had an 8% lift over and above the normal trajectory. So that is, how the numbers are interpreted. And as I said, if we just grew 1% off that base, we would be 6 million up on our base. Can you imagine if we actually grew 8% off that base? The numbers speak for themselves. The opportunity is there, and the ROI calculus is direct because you know who you targeted, and you can actually calculate, the conversion ratios. And that is why, we were very clear from the beginning that this is about audience aggregation, and it is not about football necessarily. Okay. So that is the answer to that question. I hope I've answered your question. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Kumalo. It's Kanyiso from Sport 24. You did touch on mega events when you reference to Wani's question, but just to further elaborate on it, were there any conversations that you may have had with, let's say, ACSA and or Netball South Africa prior to the sponsorship, considering that when you look at netball and cricket in particular, those are very big sports in the England market in particular?
So your question is, did we look at other sports?
With cricket and netball, considering the huge value with those sports in the UK in particular?
Absolutely. We've looked, it's as I said, that the unfortunate nature of the discussion today is that it is around a single platform, that was leaked to the press. But what we are looking at is a very comprehensive variety of platforms that we are actually going to engage on. And absolutely, looking at cricket, looking at rugby, looking at netball, we are hosting the Netball World Cup here. Looking at all, but it's not at the sport. And I really need to emphasize this point. It's not necessarily looking at the sport as it is looking at the audiences that sport is able to aggregate. So, if we're able to get to the audience, we will then be able to, to engage. If we're unable to get to the audience and it stops at the sport, that now falls in sports, arts, and culture, and we would confine that conversation to that department. We are in the business of accessing audiences, persuading them to come to the country, and to spend money in our economy. That is our core business, and that is what we'll stick to. All right, any other further questions? Thank you very much to everybody for attending this meeting. As I said, I am available for one-on-ones the whole day and the whole of the rest of this week. I'm available, just call me up. Let's operate through the office of Thandiwe here, the GM Global PR and Comms, and I'll make myself available to do one-on-ones, come to your studio, whatever is required. Thank you very much, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Acting CEO, and thank you very much, Acting Chief Strategy Officer. Please note that we will now move on to one-on-one questions. We do have my colleagues Nonku and Fisani, who will be able to coordinate for you. Of course, we can understand that there's quite a lot of questions that you may still have, so if we can just request your indulgence and patience as we do the one-on-ones. We'd like to thank also everyone that has joined us online. May I also please at this stage state that we will be delayed a little bit on our press release because as you were following the press conference, you noted that the CEO alluded to some information that we need to add on there. So we will make sure that we revise that, then we will share the press release with everyone. Nonku and Fisani will now make sure that we do have the one-on-ones interviews. Thank you so much to everyone.